has Turkey become an autocracy. The biggest protests in a decade have erupted across the country. Tens of thousands of people have been demonstrating after Ekrem İmamoğlu, the main political rival of Turkey's president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was arrested on corruption charges. İmamoğlu is the mayor of Istanbul and has been named the opposition party's new presidential candidate. His detention is the latest move by President Erdogan to consolidate more power. When Erdogan took office in 2003, Turkey was a flawed but functioning democracy. But over the past 2 decades, Erdogan has steadily undermined its democratic freedoms and institutions. The warning signs were already there by 2008, when many of his opponents, including hundreds of army officers, began to end up behind bars. But Turkey's democratic backsliding became clear during the Gezi Park protests in 2013.
Artık tam anlamıyla hukuksuzluğa dönüşen bu eylemler derhal son bulmalıdır.
Erdogan's government violently crushed the dissent, using tear gas and rubber bullets against protesters while muzzling the media to control public discourse. Then, in 2016, President Erdogan survived a violent military coup. He reacted by declaring a state of emergency which allowed his government to act without the normal legal constraints. A wave of arrests followed. Thousands of military and police officers, judges, and civil servants were imprisoned, as were scores of Kurdish politicians and activists. By 2017, Erdogan had pushed through constitutional reforms that changed Turkey's parliamentary system to a presidential one, granting him sweeping executive powers. The government was still what political scientists would call a competitive authoritarian regime. Despite Erdogan's broad executive powers and de facto control over the courts and most of the media, Turkey's elections were still mostly free. But by jailing his strongest presidential rival, he has signaled a new shift. Turkish voters may no longer be free to choose their leaders. If Erdogan continues down this path, ordinary citizens will be left with a state that's dangerously close to a full-blown autocracy.